Hi, welcome to the Dairy Hour podcast, where rural charm meets personal growth. Join us as we milk every moment for wisdom, self-improvement, and mental wellness. I'm your host, Val Lavigne, a rural dairy farming mom with a passion for filling hearts while never forgetting to fill my own cup. Get ready for insightful conversations, empowering tips, and a splash of fun and laughs, of course. Let's cultivate growth, nourish our minds, and embrace the journey together. This is the Dairy Hour podcast, where every episode is a breath of fresh air and the inspiration you need to be your best self. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Dairy Hour podcast. I am your host, Val Lavigne, and I am joined today by Katie Hammock. How are you, Katie?
I am good. Thanks so much for having me.
Good. I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have today. We need to be better about first aid around the farm, so I'm really excited that you have a lot of experience in this, and hopefully me, myself, and everybody listening will learn at least one or two things that they can take away from this conversation to, whether they're a farmer or, just someone in rural America, have something to take away from this conversation that, who knows if it could save somebody's life someday. So I'm really excited about our conversation. But before we jump into that, let's talk a little bit just about you. Katie, if you want to give us a brief intro about yourself.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Katie Hammock. I am an emergency department registered nurse of 6 years. I have worked all 6 of my nursing career in a level 1 trauma center, kind of serving rural Southern Virginia. I met a dairy farmer and ended up moving to a farm. And so I live on a dairy farm here in Southern Virginia with my husband, and we have one little boy, and kind of just am passionate about emergency medicine and agriculture. And so farm safety and that kind of stuff is the perfect merge of both of those worlds.
Awesome. And I love the stories, Dale. So I met a dairy farmer.
And right. How many times have you heard that? I'm sure.
And now I am one. And here we are.
Yes. And the rest is
history. Me down.
Yes.
So you didn't grow up on a dairy farm. Tell us a little bit about how you grew up.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Canada. So I grew up about an hour outside of Ottawa, Ontario. I did have some family that dairy farmed in northeastern Pennsylvania and New York State. So I kind of grew up going to their farms on the weekends and for holidays. And that's kind of really where my love for agriculture and dairy farming started. But I found myself down in Virginia for school. I played soccer and went to nursing school. And at the time, nurses in Canada, you really couldn't work as an emergency in the ER as a new nurse. So my goal to be an ER nurse, I had planned on just kind of getting a couple years of experience here in the emergency department. And then, like you said, then I met a farmer, and the rest is history. And so you can't really move a farm to Canada. So I moved to the farm, and here we are.
So what college did you go to?
I went to Radford University. It's in southwestern Virginia.
Okay. And the dairy farming husband, did he go there as well, or how did you meet him?
No, so he actually went to Virginia Tech, which is about 30 minutes from Radford, but we met after college. So I had been a nurse for like a couple months when we met just in the city that I lived in at the time.
Okay, you didn't meet him in the ER, correct?
No. Thank goodness not.
That's like playing out a movie. Like, so then he came into the ER with a dairy farming accident, and then... No.
Yeah, that would be a good story, but it's
like the Hallmark movie. We've got it going on. The dairy farm.
Our love story is not quite that good, but that would be a good one.
Every love story is good. It's all in the way you present it.
Absolutely.
So you went to college, graduated, you worked in a city in an ER, and met dairy farmer. How long did it take for you to be like, and now I'm becoming a farmer?
It's funny because it's like, growing up, my friends always joked that I was going to marry a dairy farmer, live on a farm. And I was like, that's not going to happen. There's not really that many dairy farmers, around. But I think we both knew pretty quickly that we were going to be the one for each other. And so we got married 2 years after we met, and I moved down to the farm. And I still work at the same hospital that I've worked in my entire career, because it's about an hour from the farm, and that's kind of, we drive an hour to get anywhere where we live. So that's not too far. So yeah.
Very cool. It is funny when you know,
yes.
And it's almost instantaneous. Like, and here we go. And they knew you were destined for dairy farming.
Yeah, it's funny.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about your farm?
Yeah, so we, like I said, our dairy farm in Southern Virginia. I'm currently milking about 850 cows, and then farming about 1,000 acres of cropland. Most of that is corn, just for corn salad. We recently, I say my husband, but mostly my husband and his family recently put in a new parlor. So that's just kind of been a new fun thing for us here. We went from a double 10 to a double 24 parallel. So we're able to milk 48 cows at a time. So that we were really maxing out the old parlor, and this new parlor, we actually have some downtime and are able, the boys are able to do maintenance on it and stuff like that. Yep. So that's kind of just a little bit about our farm here. It's a family farm. My husband's a third generation. His grandpa was initially a tobacco farmer here in Southern Virginia and then switched to dairy. And then his parents and uncles kind of just grew the farm from there.
Awesome. Yeah, he probably saw, ER nurse. She might make a good amount. She'd make a good wife because, that off-farm income,
Yes. See? Yes, the health insurance.
Oh, yeah, that too. That's like worth gold right off the bat. Yeah. That's funny. I say this just in jest, by the way. I'm not like saying that he married you for money, but it's just the dairy farmer's joke. Yes. Got to marry off the farm so that you can afford to keep farming.
Yes, literally. Yes, we've had that conversation many times. We're like, if we ever won the lottery, we would just still farm. I'm like, sounds great.
Yes, the best way to end up with $1 million is to start with $1 billion, dairy farm for a while, and then you have $1 million and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Yes, so our smaller farm in upstate New York, we actually, none of us have like an off-farm job per se, but we, under the business of the farm, also have a catering business. Cool. So when people are like, how do you do it all? And I was like, well, I really love to work all week on the farm, but then I like to work all weekend so I can afford to work all week on the farm.
Yes.
And then people that don't get it, they just look at you like, why? Why would you do such a thing? And I'm like, well, that's what dairy farmers do. Like they figure it out.
It's like when we go on vacation, like you go on vacation and you're like, okay, well, that was fun, a couple days, and now I'm ready to get back to work because I don't know what to do with myself, not working or not doing stuff. So,
or you're the family that goes on a vacation and goes to a dairy farm on vacation to visit.
So I cannot even tell you how many weddings we've been to that's where we ended up touring farms, typical dairy farmer.
Yep. We went to Florida this past February and I ended up, a gentleman that I'm on a national board with, we actually went and visited his farm and took a farm tour and stuff. And I was like, this is a dairy farmer's vacation. Like you go so that you're like 10 minutes from the beach, but then you drive inland and you go to a dairy farm.
Yes, 100%. We have
in my defense, they make ice cream there and it was well worth the drive. So 10 out of 10, we'll go back again. Even if I don't need a farm tour, I will be going back to get ice cream because girl can't live without her ice cream.
Perfect.
Oh my gosh. What kind of transitioned you? Obviously, you had a passion for helping people and being a nurse through the emergency room. What kind of led you into your role of really wanting to promote farm safety and kind of getting into that area?
Yeah, I think like people that go into emergency medicine typically are really interested in like trauma and critical patients. And for lack of a better word, like some of the like gory stuff that we see in the ER and the like, just like all like go all the time. And so as a nurse, like when I was a nurse, some of my most interesting cases to kind of see were farm accidents. Our hospital serves about a 200-mile radius, and a lot of that is like very rural areas with a lot of ag kind of around. So we get a lot of patients, if they don't come to us first, they end up at outlying facilities and come into us. And so, some of the most interesting patients were those farm and ag accidents. And then you marry a farmer and those patients become, people that and they become like families or people that you have heard of or seen. And if you don't know them, you're going to see a bit on Facebook because somebody in our small community knows them. And I just like remember like wondering like what if they had X, Y, and Z at their farm, would the outcome have been different? And I'm a huge believer that you can't always you can't know for sure that would have changed, and you can't dwell on the what ifs, but it's hard to not think about it sometimes. And so that kind of is where this passion and idea ignited from.
Yeah, it's like, what is it? Prior preparation prevents poor performance. At least having stuff around, even if you can, prevent or improve the outcome of, even 1 out of 5 issues, like that's still more than you started with. So
Yeah, absolutely.
definitely. And you've recently started doing some, stuff online and talking to people about that. So do you want to talk a little bit about how that came about?
Yeah, so I kind of have on my Instagram page have really kind of started to hone in on the first aid and the dairy, not dairy, but just like agriculture, like farm safety things, just because there's such a need for it. And I think that as I was talking to other farmers and as I've talked to like some of our friends, and even just like as this new parlor came in for us, we were talking about like, do we have a first aid kit on the farm and what that looks like? And my husband's like, well, I have one and it has some band-aids. And the ER nurse in me was like, I've never seen a band-aid save somebody's life, unfortunately, And so I was like, that's a great start, but that's not going to do much for where we are. And so that's kind of just like how, like realizing that there's not a lot of first aid stuff that is farm specific or egg specific that I've been able to find, kind of some of my research and stuff that is like emergency medicine, I guess, kind of specific. So that's kind of just like where that curiosity came from. And then I've had the opportunity to speak at a couple events, just sharing kind of some stories and like some items and kind of just like the 5 first aid items in a kit that I like have seen save lives and have seen make a difference in people's lives, and just like things that I strongly feel like every farm operation or even just people in rural communities that maybe don't have somebody that's going to be there in a couple of minutes if like an accident were to happen.
Yeah, definitely better to be prepared, especially if you do live in a more remote area where it takes longer for an emergency vehicle to get to you to help. Or if, you don't just happen to be a dairy farmer married to an ER nurse.
Yeah.
That's definitely. So I guess let's jump into it. So I'm guessing that you have some little stories that go along with each one. So take it away. Let's hear your 5 must-haves for the first aid kit.
Perfect. So
not like just Band-Aids.
Not just Band-Aids. Band-Aids are great, but they unfortunately aren't going to save a life that I've seen yet. Maybe that'll happen. But no, I have 5 first.
Hold on. My 9-year-olds, they beg to differ.
I know.
The Band-Aids don't save your life.
1000%, especially the cute ones that have the smileys on them.
But I have a little tiny scratch and I might bleed to death if I don't get a Band-Aid, and it hurts. So I really need one. And I just want to be like, I say to them, like, the Band-Aid is not going to make it feel better. It might keep you from getting blood on my stuff, but like hardly. You're barely bleeding, but it hurts. I really need a Band-Aid. I'm like, dear God, to just stop the whining. Just take a Band-Aid. I buy the cheap ones for them and I buy the good ones for myself. As a busy mom and dairy farmer, I'm always looking for ways to support my family's health as well as my own, and I absolutely love Wonder Cow Colostrum. It's packed with essential nutrients, great for supporting gut health, boosts immunity, and promotes overall wellness. Whether it's for me, my kids, or anyone looking to stay strong and healthy, Wonder Cow is my go-to daily supplement. I have been taking it for a year now, and it is irreplaceable in my daily routine. If you want to experience the amazing benefits of colostrum too, you can use my special code, DairyGalVal, at checkout for a discount. Give Wonder Cow a try, and you will definitely feel the difference.
Band-Aid and ice pack. We use that all the time in the pediatric emergency department.
They just help themselves with the ice packs at this point. And I walk in the house and I'm like, why is there an ice pack up? So-and-so, she jammed her finger a little. I'm like, is it broken? Well, it won't move. I was like, can you wiggle it? Yeah. And I'm like, then it's not broken. You're fine. So I love it.
That's for sure me as a mom.
Sorry, as the mom, I had to sidetrack on that Band-Aid thing. All right. So what do you have for actual things that are going to potentially save a life?
Hey, Band-Aids are important and they definitely help. But yeah, I have 5 items. Each of these items are truly things that I have seen, and that's kind of why I decided to put them together. I think, in my opinion, the first and arguably most important item that people can have on their farms is a tourniquet. And so tourniquets are, do you want me to go and I'll just kind of talk a little bit about what they are for and like how they're used and stuff. But so tourniquets are essentially. It makes no sense for people to have a tourniquet if they don't know what to do with it. So yes, please fill us in. Perfect. I was like, Perfect. Sounds great. Yeah. So tourniquets are essentially used for uncontrolled bleeding, or uncontrolled hemorrhaging is another term that people use them. Most commonly, they're used on extremities. So like arms, things, legs. One of the reasons why I think that these are so important, especially for people that live in rural areas, is because you can actually bleed out in less than 5 minutes. So if you hit a major artery in your leg, say you hit a chainsaw through your leg, which I've seen, and it takes 20 minutes for the ambulance to get to you. Unfortunately, if you're bleeding out, like that might be too long.
The ambulance is going to get there and they're not going to be able to do much.
Yeah.
I have a quick side story.
Yeah.
My husband, before we started dating, actually, he was working for not a farm, but he did actually, the chainsaw slipped. He was wearing protective chaps and everything, like he's, was a professional at using it. It slipped and it actually got him right in the top of the thigh. And he still has, it's like he's still got quite a scar from it, but
I can only imagine.
It was, yeah. And one of the things that I had to tell him to get rid of when we started dating was pants that he was wearing, because apparently we needed to keep those. And I was like, I don't think we really need these.
Sentimental value, right?
Garbage. Like, please get them out of here. Yes. So it does happen.
Yeah. And it happens so fast. Nobody, I always say nobody ever plans to come to the emergency department throughout that day. And so hopefully you don't need any of these things ever, but you'd rather be prepared than not. But yeah, so a tourniquet is used to stop uncontrolled bleeding, arms, legs, like I said, chainsaw accidents, hands and PTO shafts. I've seen like people run over in lawnmowers or bush hogs or whatever. And so, any of that kind of stuff that like is uncontrolled bleeding, a tourniquet is great for. I feel like there's this misconception, and something that people ask me all the time is like, if I put a tourniquet on, like I'm going to lose sensation of that limb, or I'm going to lose that arm or whatever. And the answer is it takes like 4 to 6 hours for there to be any nerve damage to that limb. And the first thing, like when you get to a trauma center or us, like that we do, is we pretty much take off the tourniquet just to assess the injury and see what's happening. And so from there, we either go to the OR or go back, or whatever. So the chances of any nerve damaging happening from a tourniquet is so slim.
Not to mention, I'd rather have my life and lose a little sensation in my arm, or I'd rather risk losing a little sensation in my arm than losing my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's think of this on the wise. Yes.
That's where my mind goes too, but I have had that asked and things like that. So yeah, so that's kind of like, they are so inexpensive. You can literally buy them on Amazon for like $6. And so in my opinion, that's like a really easy thing to just throw in a tractor cab, throw in the parlor office, throw kind of wherever you need them. The second item, I should mention about tourniquets. If for some reason like people don't have tourniquets, I've seen some people become very creative. So like belts can also work as a tourniquet, just making it really tight. The whole purpose of a tourniquet is to cut off the circulation essentially to that limb. So belts, I've seen shirts, I've seen string tied around limbs. You can kind of be creative with that if you don't have
bungee cords come to mind.
Yes. Anything that you can kind of get really tight. The second item I have is quick clot, and quick clot is just a like special type of gauze. Essentially, it helps to clot the blood faster than your blood would clot normally. So it has the natural clotting factor that's found in your blood in this type of gauze. It initially came from the military, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it came from the military and used like in combat and things like that. And so essentially, if you have an injury, like think torso, think head, think places that like you maybe not would be able to use a tourniquet, or if you don't have a tourniquet, to press and hold pressure.
Don't recommend tourniquet around your neck.
No, do not do that. That is not a good one.
Use quick clot instead.
Yes. So quick clot essentially just like holds your blood clot faster if you have injuries. So like puncture wounds come to mind, accidental gunshot wounds to like the groin. If people are, that's kind of something that comes to mind that I've seen use it a lot. Head, like there's a lot of arteries and veins and stuff in your head. So I've seen it a lot on your people's heads. And that's kind of where that comes to mind. This one I will say is a little bit more expensive. It's kind of the one thing on here that is a little bit pricier. But I really think that like if you ever needed it, it is worth its weight in gold for that, for sure.
Yeah. So I was, just because you were like, I think it came from the military, so I just Googled it quick. It was invented by Francis X. Hersey and is made from zeolite, a granular volcanic material. And the Committee on Tactical Combat Casualty Care OTCCC, if you were curious about the acronym, has chosen Quick Clot Combat Gauze as the hemostatic dressing of choice for the U.S. Department of Defense. So, and it was invented in 1989.
Perfect. I didn't know when it was invented.
There you go. See, little Google action here.
Learning things
to bring our Thursday on the move. So,
yeah.
Okay, so we've got tourniquet, we've got Quick Clot. What else do we have?
The next one is called Coban, aka vet wrap and egg. And honestly, like it's the exact same thing as vet wrap. So we just have like a vet wrap in our kind of our first aid area. But essentially it's just to maintain pressure on wounds or injuries that are bleeding. So typically kind of if you had a wound to like your belly or something, you would put Quick Clot on and then wrap that or wrap it on your around with vet wrap or Coban just to maintain that pressure of injuries.
I do have that around.
So that's like an easy one. Most people should be able to check that off the list.
Yes, and it actually works really good if you get like if you like cut your finger or something.
Yes.
For like people that are out working on the farm, instead of those Band-Aids, or you put a Band-Aid on and then you put vet wrap over it, and it helps keep it sealed and on there. So
yeah, we use it's a huge, it really does like maintain that pressure really well.
Yes, definitely.
The next item's kind of like silly, but the reason I put it on there is because this is like the one thing that I feel like surprised me that I've actually seen people tell me that they've used several times coming into our ER is a whistle. And so that is like essentially just to be able to call for help if you are in a field and your tractor rolls over and you don't have cell phone service, or you get lost and you don't have service in the field, or you fall and break your hip and you don't have service, and just trying to like get somebody's attention. And again, sounds kind of silly, but I have seen that one work more than once with people that I've been in, and so that's kind of why I put it on there.
That's impressive. That also is not something that would come to quick mind for me.
Yeah,
but that is a pretty cool, thing to have.
Yeah, it's kind of a random one.
It makes sense though, especially if you can't find somebody.
Yeah. The other kind of tidbit that comes to mind with this is a lot of people don't. I mean, maybe people do, but we didn't know like all of our 911 addresses for all of our farms that we're on, because every farmer has a nickname, and like, oh, the Smiths worked on this farm 200 years ago, so it's the Smithfield, and whatever. And so like knowing the 911 address like can also just kind of be like a really big thing.
Yeah, definitely highly recommend having a 911 address kind of map figured out for you. Know it. The employees that are working there know it. All that stuff is really important to know. And another thing too, and I hope I'm not stealing your thing, is making sure with the National Milk Producers Federation, they do the farm survey, Farmers Assuring Responsible Management. One of the things that they ensure, which actually first aid kit, I believe, got added, which it's just a regular first aid kit, though it's not Katie's excellent first aid kit of like life-saving measures, but it is like Band-Aids and like ointments and stuff like that. They also want you to have a list of emergency numbers available for employees to be able to call if there's an emergency, because a lot of times with foreign-born employees, things like that, they don't necessarily know who to call if there is a problem.
No, that's a really good point. And even like when there is an emergency, like your mind does not work how it would if you were in an emergency, right? So
I have that number memorized, and then you're in an emergency and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do.
You're like, I don't know what to do. Yeah, that's a really good point that you brought up for sure. The last item I have on here is a CPR shield, and kind of like you said, like my 5 first aid items are all like very life-saving, very like emergency, non-emergency things. But a CPR shield essentially is just like a barrier that you can put on somebody if you ever had to perform CPR on them. And it allows like you to be safe, the person that you're performing CPR on to be safe. Again, like kind of one of the reasons that I do this, I've put this one on, is because I have like unfortunately seen several patients that were working in the hayfield and picking up hay, or were doing whatever, that have like had a heart attack or heart event or whatever, and CPR had to be performed on them. And so that's just kind of something that like I keep one in my car if I ever needed to use it or things like that. Again, they're like super compact, relatively cheap. You can buy them on Amazon or wherever you want to, and just kind of allow you to do that. Hopefully you never need to use it, but if needed.
Yeah. I know I should probably, my husband has been certified in CPR before, but I should probably do that. Not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Just,
I think like with heart events, like essentially for like every minute that passes, the statistic I just looked it up the other day is the outcome decreases by 10%. So like every minute that passes that somebody's like coding, your outcome or chances of survival decreased pretty tremendously. And so really the biggest thing is like strong CPR that starts initially. And so that's kind of why I put that one on there.
I like it. That's a good one as well. Awesome. And that's five, right? So we have
Yep.
tourniquet, we have quick stop. I'm checking my, make sure I learned what I was supposed to learn. Tourniquet, quick stop, vet wrap,
Yep.
whistle, and a CPR. What did you call it? A CPR
CPR shield.
shield. I was going to call it a guard, and I was like, no, that's not right. CPR shield.
Yep.
Awesome. I love
You
it.
got it.
I'll be shopping on Amazon later.
Perfect.
Don't have to ask me twice.
I'll send you the links over so you can get them.
Yes, I mean, actually, that would be really cool if you could send that to me. I can put it in the show notes so people have them right there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to
that
do
would be really handy to have. Awesome. And I guess another little tidbit that I have from an emergency that happened to us last year. Thankfully, no one was hurt in this, but just your reminder, make sure that you have those lovely things called fire extinguishers.
Yes.
Because they are very important. So we had a little emergency last year. We were having the year of things breaking last year, and our chopper was just not cooperating. So the guys were in the field with the John Deere tech working on the chopper, and it was on the other side of like where our shop is and where my horse barn is. And then on the other side of that is where the dairy barn is. And I had rode one of my horses and I was kind of just letting him eat some grass. I had just, hosed him off and put his stuff away. And I was standing there and I heard this really weird noise, it was almost like a large buzzing noise. And it was one of those like, you're like, oh, that's an odd noise. That doesn't belong here. So you're kind of just like looking around like, what is going on? And I happened to look up at the dairy barn and there was flames coming off of the side of the dairy barn right next to the milking parlor and the milk room. We have we have a smaller dairy farm. So coming off the parlor and the milk house, just flames starting to shoot up. So I am not I can be, it depends on the situation. I'm not the best in like high pressure situations. And I certainly could never be an ER nurse because I would die. I cannot deal with
You could do it.
Cow blood is fine. We can deal with cow blood. People blood I cannot deal with. So
my husband always says, he's like, I just don't know that I could talk to that many people every day.
Oh, I can talk to them people, but I could be like the one that comes in after you're bandaged up and be like, it's gonna be okay. You're all right. But if you come into me and you've got a tourniquet on your arm and you're like gushing blood, like your girl's running.
See, that's the stuff I love. I'm like, let's go.
I'll leave that to you. So anyways, I see the flames shooting off and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I start yelling to behind me to where my husband and like my assistant herdsman were right there working on the chopper. They hear me screaming, look up, see the flames shooting off the barn, which they wouldn't have been able to hear the noise that I heard just because they were right next to the chopper that was running. So they go running. My poor husband tripped. There was like a drainage ditch between the field and my horse area. My 6'4" husband, he tripped in the ditch, did about a full flip, landed, like somehow rolled right back up to his feet and just kept on running. They sprinted to the barn. Thankfully, they knew right where the fire extinguisher was. I called 911 and they knew right where the fire extinguisher was. Thankfully, because from my vantage point, you couldn't tell if the flames were inside the barn yet or just on the outside. So, thankfully the flames were still just on the outside, but had it been a few more minutes, they were headed right up the side of the barn. And basically, once they'd gotten up to the roof, they would have traveled right across the roof and then we would have lost the whole thing. My gosh, had it happened, and it happened at like 3:00 in the afternoon. So had it happened I just happened to be standing there. Like, I don't know what kind of, like, that was like one of the luckiest days of my life because actually just the other day was the year passing of it because it showed up in my Facebook memories. And I was like, oh my gosh, the luckiest day of my life where the whole barn could have been gone in a matter of
Yeah.
instance. But I mean, I'm just so thankful that they knew right where the fire extinguisher was. The fire extinguisher was in good working condition, something that obviously you'd never expect that to happen. And it was
Yeah.
something with the electrical line like shorted out. I mean, it's
Just like
been
a
like,
freak
it's not like we
accident.
just worked on the electric line. It just was
Yeah.
a freak thing. And yeah, so there's also, while you're adding life-saving things for people on Amazon, add yourself in a few fire extinguishers
Yes.
and make sure that everyone knows where they are, make sure everyone knows how to use them because that's really important.
Yeah. Well, and that's just like anything, like you can do everything. Like, yes, there's a lot of farm accidents that happen with maybe people that like weren't following like all the
Yeah.
procedures or were taking like shortcuts or whatever. But
Mhm.
I've also seen a lot of farm and not like just trauma and stuff that like are just freak accidents. Like
Yeah.
people weren't doing anything wrong. People were following the rules. They had all their equipment on and like just a freak accident still
Yep.
happened and ended up in the emergency department.
That's why it's called an accident. Accidents
Yeah,
happen.
absolutely.
And it's better to be prepared for them than not prepared.
Yes, absolutely.
Keep that accident just an accident and not a tragedy.
Yes, yes.
So awesome. Do you have any other little tips before we move on to a more lighthearted part of the
I know that was such like a big conversation. No, I think the biggest one is just like you said, my other tidbit is like having a list of just like your addresses, having a list of like phone numbers that you can contact, and just really like telling somebody when you're going to the farm or going to a field. That's like one of the things we see all the time is like so and so never came in for dinner, so they went looking for him and turned out like they had rolled their tractor and like been pinned underneath the tractor for like 6 hours or whatever. And so just like little things like that can really go a long way, just in life in general.
Yeah, and I love technology that's kind of come out for stuff like that as well. I mean, which I wish that more people around here would wear them, but I have an Apple Watch and it has fall detection on it. It's impressive that you can have just a watch, which I use it all the time just to look at the time or to do something. But the fact that like if I take a big hit, if I fall, something like that, like I don't even have to be conscious to call 911. Like it will, if you don't answer it, it's going to send someone right to where you are. And that's pretty cool. It's definitely something, even 100 years ago, even what, 30 years ago, you would have never thought that there would be a watch that could do stuff like that. And, that's pretty impressive.
Even like I've seen people with Apple Watches come in that like it says they're having a heart attack and like yes, like not all the time, like sometimes like whatever, like it's wrong, but I have seen it come in where they're like, I just called 911, I feel great, but my watch says I'm having a heart attack. And sure enough, like they're having a heart attack. And I'm like, that is wild that we have come so far with technology that
better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. So there you go. If you're really feeling like spending some money on Amazon, get yourself an Apple Watch.
I'll add that in the links.
I don't know if there's other ones, not just Apple necessarily. I don't know if the other brands do. It's just I'm an Apple person.
Yeah, same. I don't know about any of the other ones, but that's funny.
Yes. So awesome. I love it. Let's move on to some more like lighthearted fun stuff. I love to ask some of our guests, well, I love to ask all of our guests some rapid fire questions just to kind of get to know you a little bit and just have fun because can't just be all work. You got to have some fun too.
Absolutely.
So, what's your go-to comfort food? Like you got off a long shift at the ER and you're just dying for something good. What are you going for?
Ice cream. I feel like we always have ice cream. Typical dairy answer, but I think
we just became friends, like because that's how I think all the time. I'm like, go for some ice cream always. Or over the summer, sometimes we'll just like skip lunch and have ice cream for lunch. And then after dinner, I'm still like, I need some ice cream. And my husband will look at me and be like, you had ice cream for lunch? And I'll be like, and I'm going to have some ice cream for dessert too. Yeah. So what you going to do about it, buddy? Like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
If you're going to deprive me of things, it's not going to be the ice cream.
Right. It's not going to end well if I don't have ice cream.
Don't get in the way of a woman and her ice cream. So, what's your favorite road trip destination?
That one is my parents' house in Canada. So we usually drive up. It takes us about 12 hours from where we are. And so we usually try and go up 2 or 3 times a year, and they come down. So that's my favorite road trip destination.
Very good. At 12 hours, I would fly. I'd be like, to heck with this driving. I'm out of here.
Funny story. I tried to fly. Bryant and I, my son's name is Bryant. We were going to go home at the end of August while like they were starting chopping and just busy stuff here. We're like, we're going to go home for a week. We tried to fly. Never left the airport in North Carolina, in Greensboro, North Carolina. So the next day we got in a car and ended up driving anyways. So I was like, well, that
Oh my
was
gosh.
unfortunate. Yeah.
Jeez, I don't want that kind of luck flying.
Yep.
I fly way too much for that. If you could, oh, what's your favorite board game? I like this one.
I don't even know if this is like an actual game that you can buy, but I think my grandpa made it, but it's called Aggravation, and it is like it's kind of like adult Sorry, like the Sorry game with the things around, but it's a card game. So you play cards, there's marbles that you have to move around the board and you can go home. It's called Aggravation. So I don't know, he made it.
Now, are you like me and you get super competitive? Like, are you just like we're just having fun, or do you get super into it and competitive?
It depends on who I'm playing with, but like
Oh,
if
okay.
it's adults, for the most part, I'm pretty competitive. Yeah.
Yep. And then when you're around the kids, you kind of got to play nice and
Yeah.
not a poor sport, all that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. I love that because I'm always like, oh, I'm not that competitive of a person. It's fine. And then I was at a board meeting and in the hotel, they had like a ping pong table and air hockey. I was like, oh, let's play some air hockey. And all of a sudden, my friend was just like, what happened to you? I thought you weren't that competitive. I was like, apparently I am. And I really try
Yeah.
hard. I don't like to lose. So here we are.
Yeah. That's like me with every cornhole, whatever we're playing. I'm like,
Yes.
very
Got to get
competitive.
into it.
Yep.
Just like Monica. Did you ever watch the show Friends?
I am not a big Friends person, though.
Oh my
I
gosh,
am like
no.
in the minority there for sure. Yeah.
Well, thankfully you really like ice cream because otherwise like we'd have to
To be done.
But yeah, Monica is super competitive and that's like I'm like, oh, all right, I see this. Maybe not that competitive, but pretty competitive. um what's your favorite season of the year? I guess you get a little bit of seasons in Virginia.
Yeah, I like the summer, early fall, summer. I like the hot weather. I feel like I grew up in Canada and I grew up like having to bundle up all the time. And so I don't complain about our 80, 90 degree days. Our cows don't always love it sometimes,
Yep.
but I love it. So
But I grew up freezing my butt off and I'll take every degree I can get.
Yep.
Cat or dog person?
Dog. We have an Australian Shepherd.
Oh,
Her name's
good choice.
Lacey. Yep.
Good choice. Good choice. Morning person or night owl?
Probably morning. I like to think I'm a morning person. I don't always do the best, but I do. I am more productive when I get up in the morning than I am when I stay up late. So
That makes sense. And I guess I'll do one more. What's your go-to? Like, I'm not sure what kind of shifts you work in the emergency room, but like, what's your favorite shift?
I work both actually. I work some days and some nights. I am not a night shift person. Like I don't love working full night shifts, but I will say when I did work night shift, and even now, like all of the really random cool stuff comes in on night. So it's kind of like the fun stuff that you see in the ER comes in on night shift. So
Spoken like a true ER nurse.
Yeah.
All the fun stuff comes in at night and weekends. So
Yep.
sign me up. Because during the days is boring.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. All right. I also love to ask a question that was left from a previous guest, more of like a deeper thought question. Makes your brain churn. So I don't give you much heads up on this. So let's see. What is one thing that's been crucial to your success?
Ooh.
You can take a second to think about it if you want, or talk your way.
I think just being driven. I've kind of always like just been a very goal-oriented person and setting goals and being driven to achieve those goals, whether that was like playing collegiate soccer or going to nursing school or getting my master's or whatever that looked like, and just kind of like setting those goals and working to attain those. I think just like my parents, like instilled in us at a really young age, just like that you can do anything if you set your mind to it and working hard, and that we had to work hard in whatever we wanted to do. But like sports kind of comes to mind of like if you wanted to play, like you had to work hard and earn that spot. They weren't gonna talk to our coaches and do stuff for us. And so I think that's something that like I really appreciate that they kind of put in me at a young age, and I think that's kind of something that's helped me throughout my life.
I love it. And you definitely have to be driven to be able to go to a high demand job like you have and be able to be, productive and successful at it. I would
Yeah.
definitely agree that you have to be a very driven person.
Yeah.
Not a chicken like me that would be like, oh my gosh, that's too much blood, turn and run the other way. So I'll leave that to you.
Perfect.
So, with that being said, what is a quote or saying that drives you to be the best that you can be?
Yeah, I feel like this isn't like super like quotey, like it's not something I could find that like I'm sure other people say it, but it's something I find myself saying a lot and telling a lot of people, especially kind of just in this season when I have a lot of friends having kids and stuff, is just that everything is a season and this too will pass. And I think just in life, as a mom, whether that's like sleepless nights with a baby or toddler temper tantrums or chopping season or whatever that looks like, that like this season might be hard, but it'll pass, and it is just a season, and trying to slow down enough to enjoy the hard season that you're in now while kind of knowing that the next season's right around the corner.
I love it. I have heard that before, and I do quite love that as well.
Yeah.
Because just put your head down and get through it, and there's always light on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll definitely open up another door and you'll get there. Just
Absolutely.
keep heading towards wherever you're going.
Yes.
Awesome. Is there anything else, Katie, that you want to share with us today before we plug your social media so people would know where to find you?
And not that I can think of. I feel like
Awesome.
that's kind of the main stuff that I like to share. I have some stories and stuff that I share as well, but kind of the main information I try and get out there is those 5 items. So
Awesome. I appreciate that. And where can people find you if they want to learn more or reach out to you, maybe with questions or things like that?
yeah, I am on Instagram is kind of where I am mostly at, and you can find me at the Dairy Wife is what my Instagram is, and feel free to reach out, shoot me a DM if you have any questions, and I would love to chat.
Awesome. And I will definitely link that in the show notes for everybody to be able to make it nice and easy to click that link to follow you. And I cannot thank you enough for coming on today. This was such an interesting conversation, and it's, something that I guess you try not to think about that often, but we should do a better job, as rural America, we should do a better job of being more prepared for it in hopes to prevent any senseless tragedies or, at least, like I said earlier, if we can prevent even 1 out of 5
Yeah.
tragedies, that's still 1 out of 5. And if we
Yeah.
can make that number bigger, that's even better. So,
Yeah. And unfortunately the egg community is, getting smaller and smaller daily.
yes.
So, trying to help, one person is a big difference.
We need to save our people.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate it. And we will talk to you soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We appreciate it very much. And we will talk to you next week. Have a story to share or wisdom to impart? Be a guest on the Dairy Hour podcast with me, Val Lavigne. We are seeking passionate individuals from all walks of life for insightful conversations and empowering tips. From mindset to motherhood to nutrition and fitness, we cover all of the essentials to be your best self. Share your journey and inspire others. Reach out today to be a guest on the Dairy Hour podcast, where your voice can make a difference. For more information, visit dairygalval.com or email at dairygalval@icloud.com.